What are some luxury items which you never knew existed, which only the mega rich can afford, that blows your mind and you wouldn't mind having, or is just an example of how people have too much money and not enough sense? Went to a billionaire's home who didn't have a pool. He had a man-made lake with an island in the middle and boats, jet skis. It's not really a luxury item, but this guy I knew in the dorms never wore socks more than a day. He just put on a new pair right out of the package every day and tossed the old ones in the trash. It's not like he even did his own laundry either. He just collected his clothes in a big bag and someone would pick them up at the front desk and return them washed and neatly folded once a week. He was shocked to discover that the rest of us not only did our own laundry, but also laundered our socks. Oh my goodness. My grandma knew some rich girls in college that stayed in the dorms, that would only wear an outfit once and then throw it away. So my grandma and other girls would go dumpster diving for the rich girls' clothes, wash them and keep them for themselves. I know a couple who live in NYC who have a live-in nanny for their 2 dogs. They hire a different veterinary student every few years. The student gets their own suite, a town car, a generous salary in the high 5 figures, paid trips home twice yearly, and nice bonuses. Their only job is to care for the pets, including home cooking their meals, walks, training and any appointments. By all accounts, it's a pretty sweet gig. I love it when people treat their hired workers like people and not like slaves. Back before Cleveland Clinic built their hospital in Dubai, the Middle Eastern rich used to come here for organ transplants. They needed to stay for 6-8 weeks till they could go home to recover. My boss's husband worked in construction and got a job to modify a house for one of these guys. They picked out a house, offered the owners frickin' money to get out in 48 hours. The crew came in and worked around the clock to modify the house. They flew in materials from all over the world. Marble, stonework, stained glass windows. Money was no object. Also, some rich oil dude can live in it for a couple of months and never come back. The wealthy version of a public storage unit. An exceptionally wealthy family I know refers to a wing of the local art museum as their public storage unit. They funded the wing to store their huge collection of classic and modern art since it was more practical than private storage. It included a climate-controlled, 24/7 secure location managed by professionals. Plus, the curators would handle the swapping out of pieces from the museum and the home when they needed a different style or era to fit the mood of the next dinner or event at the house. Which was funny because sometimes the swaps would introduce a dozen or so pieces not before displayed at the museum, essentially creating a new exhibit that the museum would package and promote. Behind the fuss, the family just wanted to create the right ambience for grandma's 80th birthday party. I agree with the other comments that this one has a nice practical upside for the family and the public. For whatever reason though, the amount of wealth represented by this arrangement seems truly staggering. Some super yachts have support vessels or shadow yachts. It is essentially a second ship that follows you and your yacht and carries smaller boats, jet skis, helicopters, subs, you name it. Just the most exorbitant toy hauler. A guy in my town bought 4 plots of construction places for houses across the street and turned them into garden, solely so his view wouldn't be deteriorated. The plots were $500k each. Rotating garage floor. Owner hated idea of backing out of a garage. The floor would rotate 180 degrees when he's ready to drive out. I heard Tom Cruise doesn't want to look uncool by backing up his motorcycle when he drives it, so he pays someone to follow him, and after he parks his cycle someone would stop and turn it around while he does his business, and Tom can just jump on and drive straight ahead like a cool guy when he leaves. I used to work for an engineering firm and we did the engineering, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, fire protection. For high-end residential in NYC, there was a client who owned a floor in an apartment building on Central Park West. The people below him moved out, so he bought that floor to host parties. He had a 6 inches thick sound and vibration dampening system installed on that level so he wouldn't bother the people that lived below. The building was old and the existing elevator would not stop the additional 6 inches higher on that floor only, so he installed a new elevator in the building. He also paid for French plasterers to come and live in NYC while they do the ornate plaster crown molding in the apartment. Wow, what a nice guy doing that for his neighbors. My boss, who's exorbitantly rich, tasks his employees to buy things for him, and recently asked the lab department to order a scale capable of measuring to the 0.001 of a gram. So I give him 3 options between $1,200 and $2,400 and he elected to go with the most costly version as it has a windscreen, and he wants it rushed and received ASAP. This scale is built when ordered, so we negotiate a fee of $800 to jump the line and have it delivered by our meeting in 3 days. Turns out his at-home scale that he uses to meal prep has gone out, and instead of buying batteries to replace, he decided to rush order a $2,400 scale that doesn't operate on batteries, so he can meal prep for next week. Crap. For a small fee and expenses, I would have replaced the batteries in less than 3 days. I remember doing a job at a very rich family's country house in Denmark. They had around 20 horses there and staff hired to ride them because the family themselves had no time for that. I had a friend who sort of did that, the riding, and we ended up at dinner and the owner was like, well, why buy a $5,000 horse? A $500,000 horse costs the same to keep and they might earn you some money. I understood it, but dang. This one is a bit dated, you'll see why. I know a lady that went to spend the night with a friend and was gifted an entire Encyclopedia Britannica set. That sounds weird in 2021. But this was the late 70s and you couldn't just Google or Wikipedia things. Just owning an entire set of Encyclopedia Britannica was a sign of wealth. They were a very expensive and non-essential item to fill up a bookshelf and look rich. People bought these things on payment plans like a car. Turns out they had many sets stored somewhere in their house just to hand out as very large and heavy gift to visitors. After all, how rich must you be if you can afford to hand out a sign of wealth like that just for visiting? It was a mega power move. In around 05 my grandfather bought a set of Encyclopedia Britannicas for each of his 11 children. Very pretty on a shelf. Rarely used anymore. Thanks, Granddad. I watched a documentary once on food rich people eat, and there was a place that provided caviar that came from, get this, sturgeons that get played live jazz music. Recorded jazz music wasn't good enough. It had to be performed live by a pianist. Live jazz. For fish. Imagine being the guy that plays the piano for a bunch of sturgeons in a tank and explaining this to your date LMAO. My friend's boyfriend is very wealthy with a massive art collection. Someone comes to his house once a week and moves his art around, bringing some out of storage and keeping the displays fresh. Thank you for the silver, kind Redditor. That's actually pretty terrific. The art stays in rotation and is appreciated. Bonus. Someone with curatorial and art handling experience is employed. As I'm a plumber, I recently installed a smart shower which I've known about, but this one had 2 rainfall heads, 8 body sprays. The unit also has a sauna steamer built in and can connect to your phone. So when you're driving down your street you can pick the aroma you'd like and set the temp of your shower so when you walk in it's just ready for you. I knew a family that had a lot of household staff, including a person who had the responsibility of setting up, troubleshoot, and get this, charge all their personal electronic devices. Yes, their job included charging all the electronic devices. Seasonal furniture, meaning their house is furnished multiple different ways, furniture included, and they pay someone to store it and swap it out a couple of times a year. Seems easier to just have a different house for every season. A penthouse owner has a private elevator, but also their garage is a lift so you can drive home, and when you open your car door you're at the same level than your apartment. A private garage elevator? Yeah, look at Porsche Design Tower in Miami. Exactly what you describe. I think the garages can fit 2 or 3 cars and are on the same level as the unit. Not an item per se, but once I read that some rich people have to get kidnapping insurance for their kids or something like that. I once worked at a 24/7 call center that was mostly for a bunch of area hospitals and large clinics, but there were some private doctors as well. There was this one account for a concierge doctor for the super rich. My supervisor told me that they paid a membership fee every month. I don't recall the exact figure, but it was in the multiples of thousands of dollars, and they got this doctor on call for them wherever 24/7. Someone once called with a hangnail and the doctor went and attended to it. My friend's boyfriend works for a racing team as a mechanic for the series below Formula 1. You know how you can buy a house on a golf course? Well, according to her, there are houses on racetracks, same concept as the golf course. That blew my mind. I knew there were houses that were as good as on racetracks like with Imola, Spa and naturally any street track, but I didn't think they would be on them for some reason. Michael Bay on the Island commentary, he knows about a wealthy prince, who he won't name, who has his own 747 jet complete with a surgery unit on the top floor. Inside there at all times is a 24-year-old man with the same blood type whose family has been paid off so that when the prince's heart gives out surgeons can perform a transplant from the younger man. I can credibly tell you that this is dead true, but I'm not gonna tell you the country where it's from. But I know people who've actually been on the plane, and I know people who've actually met the kid. Let me introduce you to my walking talking organ donor who lives in this plane. He doesn't say much because his family donated his organs for monetary gain while he was still alive. I'm from Ireland, so I'm gonna say horses. Rich people here love their high standard, thoroughbred horses. If you can afford race winning, stallion semen, you're doing well in life. Rich people are seriously obsessed with horse semen and to their mares frick. In Ireland, if you own multiple horses, you are either very wealthy or very poor. You can buy clothing that is made to order and then multiple copies are made and put into the closets of all your residences. That way you don't have to pack when you travel because a complete wardrobe is in every home. While not having to pack any time you travel would be the dream. Canned air. It was a trend in China for a while. Rich people would get canisters of air from Banff or somewhere in Canada and just take a few breaths of it at like parties or whatever. One of the investors of the previous company I used to work at was a billionaire. I didn't spend too much time with him, but he was always around during company parties and such, as were most of our early investors. The most whoa moment was when he talked about his house in Telluride, Colorado. Nope, he's not a skier. Nope, he's not someone who likes the mountains. Nope, it's not some real estate that he's hoping earns money. He bought it because he liked the idea of having a mountain ski retreat available to him at any time. He's owned it 10 years, and aside from visiting it when he first bought it, he's never stepped foot in it. This guy was too much of a big shot to rent a vacation house. He only wanted to stay in ones he owned, even if he never visits it. His kids use it though for winter sports, so it's not completely empty all year. A drawer installed in the kitchen to specifically keep donuts warm. I never knew this was a thing, but now I have goals. I helped in a kitchen of a Native American restaurant and they let me have access to the back drawer and salmon pate. Hola. My parents-in-law built a new house and got a tap in their kitchen which dispenses hot, cold, boiling and sparkling water. DuPont registry. People buy items, never taking possession of them, just to have their name listed as the owner in the various registries. The actual item just sits in a vault someplace, with owners changing every so often and likely never actually seeing it in person. DuPont is just one of the more widely known ones. So kinda like my Steam library. Not an item, but one of my close friends went to LA for an internship in college and met a girl there whose whole job it was to feed the meter outside this ridiculously rich film producer's apartment. He had a white Lamborghini, and rather than have it stored in the building's garage like a normal person, he liked it to be parked on the street where it was more easily accessible should he leave his apartment, so she could basically do whatever she wanted with her time, 7 days a week, as long as she fed the meter before time ran out. Whenever I think people are not that stupid to just burn away money, I remember that one pet shop in this city had dog crap holding bags sold for $10 for 3 bags deal, almost the 10 price of the normal thing because it had seasonal Christmas decor and people bought it like mad. I love money. I love everything about it. I bought some pretty good stuff. Got me a $300 pair of socks. Got a fur sink, an electric dog polisher, a gasoline powered turtleneck sweater, and, of course, I bought some dumb stuff, too. Steve Martin. Not an item, but the ability to make anything a reality. I saw a documentary on Candy Spelling covering the sale of her and her late husband's $150 million home and downsizing to a multiple floor penthouse. She wanted granite stone counters, a rose garden and a pool up there, so the developers had to change the building plans to accommodate her wishes. They acted like it was nothing to re-engineer an entire building. Worked with a guy who grew up with tons of money. Their extremely large house caught fire while family was eating brunch. It was heavily involved, so fire department used a ton of water, which the mother worried would ruin the family artwork, valuable furniture, etc. After it was over, the chief walks parents through the house and shows how they moved all the contents of home to center of rooms and covered with tarps, saving a good deal of their items. As a thank you, she bought them another fire truck. Believe she's made smaller donations over the years when she hears they need something. Last I heard, it was the new Scott thermal imaging cameras built into the individual firefighters' fascie pieces. That's actually cool as crap. My uncle is a doctor. He has been the lead board member for the biggest hospital, and a world famous one, in my area for the last 4-5 years. Dude is loaded, so much so that I learned he has a personal tram, think ski lift, to his house. WTF, never knew those were a thing. Buying books by the foot. Have a new house with lots of bookshelves that you want filled. Pick what types of books you want. Ballum. Full library. When done this way, books are sold by the foot. I have 1000 feet of bookshelf space and want 500 feet of classics, 250 feet of fashion-based coffee table books, and 100 feet of science fiction. Fill in the rest with contemporary fiction. There was a designer talking about how he'd buy books like this just not by the genre, but by the color. Doesn't matter what the subject is, it has to look expensive and good with the rest of the furniture match the carpets or the pillows or something. Client of mine had a custom upholstered leather cushion built into the wall above the man cave urinal. This way when he is blind drunk he can rest his head against it to pee. Obscene wealth is an understatement. That's not something I have need for, and your client probably spent a ridiculous amount of money on it, but if I did want one, I could probably get the materials for less than $50 and build it on a Saturday. It's the routine drunkenness to the point of struggling to pee that I think is worrisome here, not the money. Country club memberships. I always knew what they were but didn't realize how much they were and how it works. My in-laws belong to one. They pay $40k plus per year to golf and be members. Along with this membership, you are required to spend a minimum amount per month either playing golf, dining or whatever else you spend money on at these places. I believe the minimum at my in-laws place is $800 per month. Nothing like $50k to find friends. I think our town's is $500 a month. My former co-worker and her husband are members, but her family were members when she was a kid. My cousin's mansion has heated floors in the garage. He said it sounds really stupid, but when the weather is freezing, he just turns on the floor heat a few minutes before he's ready to leave and it warms up his car so he doesn't have to. Like, I don't personally need that in my life, but if I had it, I would use it. I used to work on yachts when I was young, free and single. Some of the extravagant displays of wealth were simply appalling and frankly repugnant. But there was one that caught my eye and I still think about years, decades later. There's a Middle Eastern oil sheikh that visits a Savile Row tailor for all his clothing needs. Shirts, suits, formal, informal, smoking, dinner, you name it, even down to his underwear. That's not extravagant. What comes next is, he buys 4 sets of every single item. He then has each wardrobe sent to one of his usual homes, his primary home, his villa in the south of France, his house in London, and his rather large Gin Palace motor yacht, all so that he doesn't have to worry about his luggage. He knows exactly what clothes he has when he arrives at the other end. No packing, no lost luggage worries, no crumpled shirts, no worries. I sometimes can't stop thinking how clever and liberating this must be, and yet how decadent this is, both at the same time. Maybe it's just all of these, I don't know, but I'm impressed and horrified in equal measure. The more wealthy a family is, the harder it is to find the kitchen trash can. This is almost always true from what I've seen. Office staff. A friend of mine worked as office staff for a woman who came from old money. She had various houses all over the place and had office staff at each location who spent their days doing for her the things you need done when you have tons of cash and nothing to do all day. She of course had all the standard household staff as well. This woman would beckon my friend with requests like last month when I was in Rome. I saw a jacket in a window I really liked. Get me the jacket. So my friend would spend days talking to the concierge at the hotel the woman stayed at, the limo driver and various people trying to figure out what jacket she was talking about. She was usually successful in getting this woman whatever she wanted. This same woman called her into her office one day and said, "I just heard that people pay 99 cents to download a song from the internet. That's a lot of money. Who can afford to do that?" This is the same day the same woman spent $30,000 on a bracelet. My friend had to do all this woman's Christmas shopping and would spend hundreds of thousands of dollars buying various relatives and acquaintances big ticket items like big screen TVs. She gave my friend, who busted her butt working for this woman, a Christmas present too, a set of cheap placemats. I thought you were just taking the pee out of The Devil Wears Prada. And then I read the second paragraph again, lol. I work in procurement and bought a bigwigger 20k toilet from Italy that would analyze your waste and text you a biometric readout. Makes sense if it actually works. Rich people are obsessed with health usually. My dad had a friend. He used to drive an old Toyota pickup, rusted to heck. He wore flip-flops all day, surf shorts and shirts covered in holes and a constant surfer tan. He also owned 2 blocks of high-end beachfront flats and an upper-class beachfront hotel or 2. I forget. I envy that he doesn't have to prove anything to anyone. Yeah, a financial advisor friend told me his wealthiest client dresses like he's homeless. Where I live, dressing down is smart to deter mugging, etc. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.